Hi, my name is Matt Cooper. I'm founder of AnimaMundi and appreciate you taking the time to go through this presentation with me. I'd like to start off in a rather unusual way, which is to show you pictures of having spent 2 years in the Caribbean living on a sailboat and obviously able to visit some of the most pristine and unusual and beautiful parts of our planet. However, one of the reasons for me speaking to you today is because 100 meters from each of those pictures, I also took these pictures and these. And basically 2 years living on a boat, visiting 10,000 linear kilometers of coastline. We never found a beach or part of the coastline which didn't have plastic waste. The majority of that plastic waste was single-use plastic bottles. So back on land, I thought there must be something to do about this and started to research the problem. And there are a lot of numbers out there. There are thousands of millions of tons of plastic entering our ocean, but I don't really know what a million tons of plastic looks like. But I did find a number which spoke to me, and that was that there are 33,000 single-use plastic bottles entering our oceans every single minute. And that's a number I could get my head around, or at least see just how huge the problem is. So I decided to do something about it and research who was doing what about it. And noticed that there are hundreds, in fact, I stopped at 200 odd organizations that are trying to influence what I call upstream, stop the oil companies from putting oil into the chemical industry, which is manufacturing the plastics, the consumer goods and beverages and packaging industry using plastics. A lot of talk about stopping the tap, turning the tap off. And a lot of people doing some good things. I'm not sure if we're going to live without plastic in the future. The numbers don't look that good, but there's a lot of work going on there to influence it. And downstream, there's a lot of work going on to try and help people recycle, manage the waste, clean up the garbage, clean up the beaches. And I thought, well, a lot of people doing a lot of things. Why is it that we're finding such a problem? And therefore kept that motivation to say, there's got to be something to be done. And interestingly, what I've decided to do is something linked to what I didn't find rather than what I did find. And what I didn't find in all my research is a database that shows us where the plastic waste problem is on our shorelines. And there's no map where you can click on an island or click on a part of a coastline and see how much plastic waste is there. Yet, if you visit it, you see it with your own eyes. So I decided to come up with a global database to be able to, at any moment in time, know the plastic waste problem in that location. And before I moved any further on that, I thought, well, okay, if there's a database to be created, who would be interested in it? Who would use it? And clearly, people who would use it and be interested in it are those that are already investing enormous amounts of money in what I call the ocean health. Morgan Stanley got $25 billion under asset management for their sustainable investing packages. And there's a specific mention of plastic waste in there. And they thought they would only get to 5 billion over the last few years, and they're already at 25 billion of client assets under management. The Alliance to End Plastic Waste have got together 50 of the largest corporations to pledge $1.5 billion towards plastic waste initiatives over the next 5 years. A lot of people finally taking an interest in helping resolve the plastic waste problem in the oceans. And of course, ocean philanthropists who I believe would hugely benefit from data to be able to drive investment strategies in the future. And of course, for ongoing projects to start to be able to measure the impact. What difference are their investments making? So with the notion that there are people interested and would care about the data, decided go ahead and find a way to gather that data. Well, interestingly, so I'm an aerospace engineer. I like pushing the technology, and by driving the technology, computer vision, artificial intelligence technology, we're now able to extract from the photographic record an automated process to literally count the number of plastic bottles that can be seen in any photograph. And so we have, as with any startup, you need an app. So we've integrated that engine into an app to be able to get real-time in situ, and there, of course, because it's progressive, evolving data of plastic waste on our coastlines. I'll show you the app in the next slide, but interestingly, rather than just relying on people taking pictures, there's actually huge number of pictures already existing. So there's a historical archive of data residing in the cloud that we're getting access to. And sure, there's some privacy issues, and we have to make sure that the metadata is still accurate, as in every picture you take with a smartphone these days has GPS time and data stamp. And so as long as we've got that covered, we can actually launch with a whole bunch of historical data, existing historical data. Here's a quick view of the screenshots of the app. Now, the first three are pinch and zoom. You can start to see numbers and data of the area that is covered on the screen. And of course, you zoom into on the third screen where you're at. And on any one of the screens in the app, you have a green button at the bottom, which is take a picture. And our belief is that you have to make the user experience and that user interface seamless and simple. There are other people that have tried to set up similar apps, but they're asking you to tag the picture, to scroll through different number of items to be able to count it. And what we've been able to do is design an engine through, and this is where the letters up top coming, through convoluted neural networks, and you only look once. We're able now to get the app to do the work for you. And once you've taken a picture in this fourth screenshot, the fifth screenshot then shows you the interpretation by our advanced artificial intelligence, which counts the number of bottles, number of cans, and number of food wrapping. Happy to talk to you for a while around that technology. It's very exciting. So we're going to launch in multiple phases. I'd love to do it globally initially, but clearly we would start relatively small. And I'll speak about how relative small is, but we're talking about a project base, potentially with an organization like Carrefour, French retailer, who are under enormous pressure to reduce the amount of plastic packaging on their food products. And clearly they're interested in saying, well, if we invest millions of euro over the next 3 to 5 years to reduce this, then can we measure the impact of that reduction on the French coastlines? And therefore they need the data to be able to do that. We're talking to the International Union for the Conservation of Nature, and they have a whole series of initiatives around the world. And we're looking specifically at the what they call the plastic waste-free islands, which happens to be in the Caribbean, which I know about, where they're getting governments to work together. And one of the obvious things about getting data is to be able to see the impact of that kind of initiative on the reduction of waste in and around the Caribbean. So that would be phase one. However, at launch, we're looking at putting the app into the hands of over 1.5 million users. That's through social media connections that I have. And it would only scale up from there, because phase two would then be to get into the tens of millions. There are 40 million people on boats in the Mediterranean any given year. And so I'm kind of conservatively saying we would tap into a portion of that. And that's not even talking about the number of people that visit beaches for the day on holiday, which gets into the hundreds of millions. So this could scale up very quickly. And this is why it can become very quickly global. However, as part of our phase 2, we're also looking at the other part of the plastics problem, which is microplastics, which is in suspension in the water and or washing up onto the beaches and becoming just sort of integral part of the sand and beach. And microplastics are just becoming a huge problem as they get into our food chain through animals. Um, However, different budgets are needed, different technology, and we're looking here at putting LiDAR cameras onto drones, aircraft, and satellites to be able to measure that chemical composition of the first 10-meter depth of the water column, and start to be able to see where the biggest problems lie, therefore where to invest in cleaning up the microplastics, and or how that changes through the changes that all those great organizations are already doing to try and reduce the amount of plastic that we actually use that ultimately ends up in our oceans. Now, if we look at financials, even though phase 2 and flying satellites around the Earth is an expensive exercise, our start is very frugal with a couple of $100,000 to keep the app and the database in development and maintained and growing initially, and looking at $1 million to $1.5 million a year for the first 5 years, which really is just bringing people on board with permanent contracts to help this grow through promotion and through development. So really come to a couple of decisions I believe we need to make. And one is to decide on what percentage of the investment that is already going into ocean health should go into being able to measure the impact of what it is we're already doing. And from the tens of people that I've already spoken to around this, everybody says 10 to 15%. And that makes the numbers we're looking at fairly acceptable. Second question is, should we continue to invest in this space without having a reliable way to measure the impact of what we're doing? And everybody agrees that that's not a good idea. Investing blind ultimately and eventually is not sustainable. We'll move on to something else where we can measure and be able to promote what it is we're putting our energy and our money behind. And so I'd like to leave you with a choice to stay on the left or help us move to the right, move to cleaning up, resolving, and being able to measure the resolution of our plastic waste problem on the coastlines. And that is to support an innovative data application that will help get us there. And so I thank you for your time, for listening, and look forward to conversations that ensue. Bye-bye.